안녕하세요, 미치쌤입니다. 비즈니스 미팅이나 사교 모임에서 거절하기 참 힘들죠. 한국 정사상 무례해 보일까봐 걱정되시는 분들이 많으신데요. 오늘은 원어민처럼 부드럽고 전문적으로 거절하는 법을 배우겠습니다. Today, we're learning how to say no without sounding rude. Very difficult, right? Even in your native language. In English, even if I have to say no, I'm really not good at saying no. When people ask me something, I have a very hard time, even in English, to say no. Rejecting. We call this rejecting, right? Rejecting is hard because you don't want to make that person angry. You don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to, maybe if it's your boss, I don't want to get fired. Lots of reasons why it's hard to say no. But today we're going to learn how to say no without being rude. Very professional ways to say no. In global business, a clear but polite no is actually more respected than a vague yes. What that means is it's much better in business to say no clearly than just to kind of so, oh yeah, maybe I'll get to it soon. Okay, yeah, I'll try. That doesn't sound very professional, right? It sounds like you're not going to try. And so most people in Western business appreciate a clear no, but there are ways to do it nicely. Okay, so let's talk about those today. So first of all, the first thing you need to know when you're going to say no to somebody, you need what we call a buffer phrase. Buffer, right? Buffer means something to make it a little softer. Something in the middle to make it softer. 바로 No라고 하기보다 하고 싶지만이라는 느낌을 먼저 전달해 보세요. Start with, I'd love to, but. That's the phrase. I'd love to, but 정말 그러고 싶지만. And then give your excuse, your reason. Okay, that's a much better, that buffer that gives a little bit softer feel, rather than just saying, no, I can't. No, I can't. That's way too direct, okay? So we like to be direct. In English, we'll be direct, but we have ways to make it direct and soft, okay? So that's what you could say. Oh, I'd love to. I'd really love to. You can even add words like, I'd really love to. Oh, I would really love to, but, right? Let's say your boss says, hey, let's go out, let's drink soju tonight. You say, oh, I'd really love to, but I have to meet my family or something like that. Okay, so that is a much better way than just saying no. Another example, let's say your boss wants to have a meeting or some client wants to have a meeting, but you can't, you don't have time at that time. We use this phrase, I have a conflict at that time. I have a conflict at that time. 그 시간에 서약, 그 중복 일정이 있습니다. So that means I have another appointment, right? I would love to. You could even use that phrase. You could say, oh, I'd love to, but I have a conflict at that time. Right? It sounds much more professional than just saying, I'm busy. Don't just say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. No, that doesn't sound professional. That doesn't sound nice. That sounds like that person is not important to you. So a better way, you say, oh, I'd love to, but I have a conflict at that time. Yeah. Or this is another one. My schedule is a bit tight this week. My schedule is a bit tight. We say tight. 이번 주 일정이 좀 빡빡하네요. That's the meaning. Tight, right? So it's a polite way to say you don't have time. But again, you don't want to make the person feel like they're not important. So you want to make them feel important. So you say, oh, I'd love to, but you know what? My schedule is a bit tight this week. Okay? Now that's a good starting point. I'm not saying this is the end, though. We have more to do. Because if you stop there, they'll probably be nice and say, okay, I got it. But they're going to walk away and they might feel a little bit like, oh, I can't believe Mitch never has time for me. He's always making excuses, right? They might feel hurt a little bit. And we don't want that. We don't want people's feeling to be hurt. So we have to, the last part of this, we have to offer an alternative. Offer an alternative, right? In other words, don't just say no, I can't. Even if you say it politely, give an alternative time or an alternative day or some other way for you to do what they're asking. You know, your boss says, hey, let's go drink some soju tonight. You say, I can't make it then, but how about next Tuesday? Okay, I'd love to, but I can't make it then. My schedule is a bit tight this week. I have a conflict at that time, but how about next Tuesday? Okay, so that last part, very important, because now your boss is going to say, oh, okay, he might be busy. I get that. I understand that. But at least he said he wants to meet next Tuesday. You give an alternative so they can, maybe they'll say, okay, that's good. Or they might say, oh, I'm busy then. Okay, problem solved. You don't have to meet your boss to drink soju. Great. But you at least opened the option so that it wasn't just you saying no. Okay, so that's a good way to do it. Offer an alternative. How about next Tuesday? Or if someone asks you to do something, but you don't have time, or maybe it's not your job. You know, sometimes in work, someone says, hey, can you do this? And you say, that's not my job. I don't do that. So here's a good way for that situation. You could say, I'm not the best person for this, but you should ask, and then, give it to someone else, right? So I'm not the best person for this task, but maybe you could ask this person. That's a good way to say no, because it's hard to do that when someone tries to give you work that actually is not your job. It's not your work. That happens all the time in business. So how do you handle it? Well, that's the best way. Say, you know what? I'm not the best person for this, but I think maybe this person would be good. Okay. And be careful about that, because you don't want to just give it to someone who also it's not their job, right? Just, you have to think about whose job is this and try to pass it on to them in a polite way. So that's a good way. I'm not the best person for this, but, maybe this person would be able to do it. Another way, when someone offers you something or asks you to do something, let's say like I said, your boss wants to take you out for soju. I keep using that example because my students always talk about that example. But a good way to say no for this one, you could say, I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass this time. That's a really good one, okay? I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass this time. Okay, very polite, but it's very clear, okay? I appreciate the offer. That part means thank you. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for asking me. But I'll have to pass this time. Pass means say no. It's a polite way to say no. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to pass. That means I can't do it. 제안은 감사하지만 이번에 사양하겠습니다. That kind of meaning, right? It's a little bit, saying, I'm really sorry. I appreciate it. I'm thankful for it, but I just can't. Okay. So very polite, but very useful. I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass this time. So let's try some shadowing. 큰 소리로 따라해 보세요. 자신감은 중요해요. 그렇죠? Okay. So try this. I'd love to, but I have a conflict at that time. I'd love to, but I have a conflict at that time. Or this one. I appreciate the invitation, but I'll have to pass. I appreciate the invitation, but I'll have to pass. Okay, so same as before, you could say, I appreciate the offer. That's a good one. Or I appreciate the invitation. Both are the same. Doesn't matter. Whatever is easiest for you. Okay? Remember, confidence comes from being clear. Okay? You have to be clear and confident, but not rude, right? You don't have to be rude to be confident. That's two different things. Don't worry about it. You're not going to be rude if you use the right phrases and the right speaking style. It will be okay. You'll be okay. They won't be angry. Usually, most people, they won't get angry. They will understand your situation and you don't have to do it. Great. Win-win. Everybody's happy. 거절도 실력입니다. 비즈니스에서 명확한 의사 표현은 여러분의 가치를 높여줍니다. 구독 잊지 마세요.